So as we were saying, joints are important for movement. Without our joints, we wouldn't be able to. Come on now. Okay, there we go. Sorry, everything is kind of running. Let's see if I have something else running in the back.
All right, I think they calmed down a bit.
What was that?
I think the kids calmed down a bit.
Okay. Did you guys, let's see, let's look. Come on. Sorry. Okay, can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay, good. My laptop is just struggling today, just trying to tell me something. Okay, so we have suture joints in the skull. And so in this case, it's kind of like those joints where you're having these bones overlap. Now, these suture joints are, okay, here we go again. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, sorry. Okay, we'll see if it works. Okay, so these suture joints are immobile. So these guys are not able to sit there and move. And so when they're immobile, that is going to be synovial. Okay, come on, it may decide it's going to change slides. Okay. Okay, it's a little possessed today. Okay, so when the joints have limited mobility, so kind of like our vertebrae, that is referred to as arthritis. Sorry. And then when the joints are mobile, that's referred to as dianthrosis. So like our shoulders, or the multi-axial joint. Come on. Maybe it may work, may not. Come on. Okay.
So like the carpal bones in our hands, Are they amphi or synar?
They're they're ampy because they have some mobility associated with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not as much as we'd like,
Because
but there's limited mobility associated with it, you know.
same goes with the ones on our feet, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So they're amphi.
Okay. Oops, sorry. So we also have what we call fibrous joints. Fibrous joints are going to be where we have connection between two bones. So like the suture lines and things in our skull.
Mm.
And so initially it's going to start off as fervius connective tissue, and then it's going to develop into a fervius joint. Okay.
Mm.
So, and then some other examples are the interosseous membrane between the ula and the radius. Okay, so again, those guys actually they start forming those fibrous connective tissue, and then eventually it becomes a fibrous joint.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and so and that's the same thing in the case of our tooth, right? So the gumphius, gumphosis, which is where basically our tooth is anchored at. So that little lining along there, so where our tooth actually goes into the socket itself of our jaw. Come on. Sorry, again, a little delay. So in newborns, you can kind of see the development of the fervius joints. Well, so like when a baby is first born, we have, come on, sorry, we have the fontanelles. And so right there, that's initially starting off as fibrous connective tissue. And then it starts to develop between into that fervius joint. So initially it's all soft tissue.
Mm-hmm.
And student this morning enlightened me that one of the reasons that happens, the reason why a baby's head is soft initially, so you always try to protect it once it's born, was that during the delivery, it needs to have some flexibility to be able to be pushed through the mother's vaginal.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because if you had like a hard object going through, probably cause a lot more pain.
Yeah,
Might actually tear more.
yeah, yeah. And then also in terms of the child's damage as well too. You got to think about that. So by having that flexibility, it gives it, a little leeway and alleviate some of the pressure that may be building up.
That also explains like some cases where the child's born with a deformed head and they have to wear that weird looking helmet.
Yes, that's true. So we also have um, cartilaginous joints. And so in that case, like in the growth plate or the epiphyseal plate, we have that bit of cartilage that's on the end. And so we also have a lot of cartilage that are going to be in our joints as well too. And we kind of recognize that when we eat chicken at the ends of it. So when you take the chicken wing, right, and you break it off into half, and at the very end of it, you still have that cartilage within the joint itself, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then also in the pubic area, the pubic symphysis, So like in the case of mother giving birth again, right? So that you need some flexibility for it to sit there, and some mobility to sit there to widen out so that baby's head can actually fit through it a little bit better, right? Okay, so we also have Cinevel joints. Cinevel joints are basically joints that allow for that smooth movement, right? And sorry. And so we'll talk a little bit more about the different types of Cinevel joints that we have here in a second. And so these cavities are often filled with Cinevel fluid. And so that kind of helps alleviate some of the friction that is going to be in those joints that are moving quite a bit. Right. And then you also have, if you take a look here, you have your articular cartilage as well within those joints. Okay, so, oops, sorry. Okay, so we have some Bursia. So Bursia is basically fluid-filled sacs that are used to prevent friction between skin, muscle, and tendons, and underlying bones. And so there are three types. We have subcuticus, sorry. Trying to eat and so they have lunch. Subcutaneous Bursia. So these are going to be the one between the skin and the bone.
Skin and bone.
Yeah. So if we looked on this diagram here, this guy right here would be, that would be subcutaneous Bursia. Okay.
Okay.
So we have tendinitis Bursia. So that's going to be the one under the tendon and the bone. So it's between the tendon and the bone.
Oh, okay.
So the pituitary Bursia. So that one is subtendinitis Bursia. And then we have submuscular. If I could spell. Okay, so that one's underneath the muscle, which we don't have a nice figure of. Okay, questions?
I'm guessing these are just so it reduces friction and stops them from like deteriorating.
Yeah, it minimized the impact, yeah, and by reducing the friction, it doesn't stop it from deteriorating, because as you age, you're going to deteriorate. And
Mm-hmm.
so, and you're also going to notice that those areas are going to get a little bit worn and lessen in a sense. Okay, just like your cartilage is also going to start deteriorating over time as you age.
Start feeling it eventually.
Yeah. And you also have this fat pad in there as well too. And so that also serves as a point of kind of alleviating some of that friction.
Okay.
Okay. So we also have what they're called tendon sheets, or sorry, tendency. So they're very similar to Bursia, but they're typically smaller. And then they're just connective tissue sacs as well.
It's that paper like thing that surrounds the cartilage, right?
The tendon sheet, yeah. But it's so it's actually filled with fluid as well too, right? So it is that it's still connective tissue, but they're secreting a lot of fluids under those circumstances. They're a lot smaller, like you said, they're thinner, smaller. So it's, I guess, not quite paper-like, but close enough.
Um, it can be found in chicken legs, right?
Yes, it can be found in chicken legs.
Well,
And it's typically, what was that?
what was that? How does that look like when we're eating it?
So it'll be white, kind of whitish. It's not it's not the cartilage, but it is yeah, I see what you're saying, that very thin part. But when we
Mm-hmm.
cook it, we make it even thinner. Yeah, and so
Oh,
it shows up really white when we cook it, right?
okay.
And so it typically wraps the muscle tendons. So, it's like
Oh,
you see all of the muscles when they come together,
yeah.
and so at that point you have the cartilage, and then you'll have like a little sheet around it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's that sheet.
Okay, yeah.
Maybe I should have you guys rip apart chickens.
Uh,
Okay, so so there are so there are 6 types of Cinevel joints. So we have the pivot joint, which is like our head. So we're able to sit there and rotate. We're able to pivot.
mm-hmm.
We have the hinge joint, like our elbow. So we're able to lift our weights, you know. We have the articulation between the trapezium carpal bone and the first metacarpal bone at the base of the thumb. So we have this guy. And then and this guy is kind of take a look at it down here at the figure, right? So the hinge, it's kind of like just a hinge, but in this case, it's kind of like, so you see how the hinge fits solidly into that little socket there. Well, this one is a little more limited, right? So
Yeah.
we still have that ability to sit there and flex, but that we have limited flexibility. But we also have the ability to sit there and not necessarily rotate, but what is it? What is the word I'm looking for? So our movement is limited to an extent here, right? So we're able to sit there and get that movement, but we have a little more rotation that is able to go with it as well too. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, and I guess this is called like the saddle joint, right? Like a big saddle.
Looks like one.
Then we have the plane joint. And so it's basically sitting on a plane. And so that's kind of like in our feet, the tarsal bones. So it allows for gliding. And then I will show you my feet, but you know, that would mean I have to get on the floor. But, so, and then we have the radiocarpal joint, right? And so that means we get that radial movement. And then we have the ball and socket, right? So ball and socket here, and in our hip and hip joints and shoulder area, shoulder joints. So as we get older, which we've already kind of discussed, we go through osteoarthritis. So osteoarthritis is just basically, it's just prolonged wear and tear on that joint itself. So in this case, that articular cartilage is being ripped or torn, and so you're getting the bone being exposed. And so as a result of that, it causes inflammation, and then our joint is stiff, and we wake up really sore. You know, we can't move as easily as we can, and when we do, it hurts quite a bit. And so the Cinevel joints are basically responsible for giving us movement. And so, you know, in terms of the different types of movements we could have, as a result of these joints, we could sit there and have the flexion. So basically flexing, like flexing our muscle, you know, and we can have extensions, right? Where we're extending our arms completely, okay? Or our legs, okay? We could have, in the case of our neck, we could sit there and do flexing as we push down, and then extension, where we're pushing it completely back and extending, okay? Okay, so, and also in terms of our hips and stuff, we could actually extend and then flex as well too. So when we're talking about movement in towards the body and away from the body, that basically is going to be our adduction. Adduction is movement in towards the body. So if we're kind of bringing everything in, adduction, and then if we're pushing things out, that's abduction. Okay, and then when we're doing things in circular, that is circular adduction. Okay, so if we're moving things in a circular pattern, circular adduction.
Okay, that should be easy to remember.
Okay. We have rotation, right? So we have just general rotation, like our head rotations, right?
Yep.
We have lateral rotations. Lateral basically meaning moving out, moving the leg out, rotating it out. And then if you're rotating it in towards the body, that's medial rotation. We have supination, where we basically turn our hands up so that the palm is facing upwards. And then we have the radial rotation, where we're doing pronation, where we turn our hand downward, downward and up. We have dorsiflexion, where we're pointing our toes up. And then we have plantar flexion, where we're turning our toes down. So you curl your toes up, dorsiflexion, toes down, plantar flexion. And if we have, if our toes are, let's say, we arch our toes up like this. So our big toe is facing up. So that is going to be inversion. And then everversion is when our big toe is towards the ground, our baby. And then in terms of the mandible, so we have protraction when we stick our lip out, you know, and we're pouting. Protraction, and then we have retraction when we bring it in and pretend like we have no bottom teeth.
Mm.
We have elevation when we have our jaw up. Then when we're depressed, we put our head down, so depression. So when we bring our fingers together, so that's opposition.
Oh boy.
And then so as we bring our fingers on the same hand back towards the index finger, so then that's reposition. Okay.
I think inversion and everversion and the fingers one I might get a bit confused on.
Yeah. So everversion is if your toe is touching the ground. I mean, your little toe is touching the ground, and your big toe is pointing up. Sorry, it's inversion. And then everversion is just that opposite. It's when your big toe is touching the ground and your baby toe is pointing up.
Mm-hmm. Okay. It's written down.
Okay, so these couple of slides basically are just anatomy slides, which we're not so concerned with on our end. Okay, so the last thing that we wanted to talk about is knee injuries. Okay, so when we think about knee injuries, a lot of our knee injuries are a result of those joints. So we can tear ligaments, sorry, not ligaments, tear ligaments. And when we tear those ligaments, often they're going to have to be repaired.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that they repair them is actually they'll trim them down, and then they'll suture them together. They'll sew them together. And then over time, you have to let your body heal. And so, but when you get back into play, you'll realize that they're very, very tight because literally you rip ligaments and they went in, they trimmed them down, and they sewed them together. So what they initially started out as is not the same as what you're going to end up with. And so you typically are going to a physical therapist to help you extend those ligaments.
Yep.
And then until you can get a lot more flexibility or around the same flexibility that you had before. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The other ways that the knee is, or the joints are injured, is like if you're damaged the meniscus. So you could damage your lateral meniscus, or you can damage your medial meniscus. And so by having tears there, that'll actually cause inflammation in your knees to swell up. And so they actually will have to go in and do surgery there as well too. And so the meniscus is made up of cartilage. And so in that case, you're removing the cartilage fibers out of there. You're cleaning them up. And then, but as we age, we don't replace that cartilage, right? And so you start getting more and more bone exposed. And so it leads to more arthritis, more swelling, or more inflammation. Okay, well, that's all I got for you today. Okay,
All right. Well, thank you for the lecture, and I hope you have a good day.
yeah, you too. Bye-bye.
Yep.